When I first started trying to computerize some old Europa stuff, I wasn't sure it was going to work at all. So I decided to focus on ground operations, and I abstracted out all the wonderful air stuff just simply to points that each side could use. And the only missions available were ground support and defensive air support. So as I have worked on Sea Lion 40, which I think is the ninth in the series of scenarios that I've been doing, I have now expanded the air system a little bit. So it's not nearly as extensive as in any of the old Europa games, but it, it definitely is a step up now. Um, so you can still do ground support, defensive air support. Uh, as I've shown in another video demo, as well as some stuff at the website, air points can also be assigned to the air naval campaign that determines, in general, how successful that the Axis player is going to be in shipping troops over to the UK. So on top of that, I've added some more missions and a few other things to go along with that. And I've set things up here in a slightly artificial situation. So we're now September 1, 1940. The Axis player is ashore down here and has pushed forward. And let's just take a look at some of the things focusing on air operations, and we'll be looking at the Allied player turn. First thing I should do is double check here. And these are diagnostics that I use to see what's going on. And we're looking over here, and we do have a few points available, so that's pretty good. I won't, well, maybe I will. I'll go and this is something that I can do just to get in and change things in the middle of the game that players won't really be able to do. I'm going to come in here and raise the RAF. That should be more than enough. The RAF wishes they had 200 points to play with. So I just give the RAF some extra air points to play with to make sure that I have enough to do in the demo here. So anyway, let's take a look at the situation. We're now in the movement phase of September 1. The Allied player is going to decide what to do. Ground movement and air movement happen basically at the same time. The air ops are on demand. But I think I'll just leave the ground operations alone and show some air operation stuff. And first of all, let's take a look and see what has the German player done lately, and that would be harassment bombing. In this case, enemy means the Axis player, because right now the Allied player is phasing. So we'll look over here and we see where these red dots popped up indicate that there's some Axis harassment bombing going on. Now, in the actual game system, depending on which game you look at, harassment bombing is typically done by the non-phasing player in the initial phase of the phasing player turn. Does that make sense? Because what that means, what I'm trying to say, is the rule says that the harassment bombing is done out of sequence. And I don't do it quite like that here because the system can keep track of it. So harassment bombing gets conducted at the same time that normal bombing, tactical bombing, and strategic bombing takes place. And the system just basically holds on to it until the opposing player turn comes around, at which point it kicks in then. So you don't have to worry about conducting your harassment bombing missions kind of out of sequence in the initial phase of the opposing player turn. Anyway, so that's some harassment bombing going on in those two hexes. Let's see what else is happening here with port hits. So previously, the Luftwaffe has hit the port of Portsmouth, and there probably was not really any reason to do that, but I wanted to have a bombing hit over there. And then we can look at rail breaks, and we can see that the Luftwaffe has also hit some railroads along here. So that's a situation that we're starting with. What the Luftwaffe has been doing to the Brits. So let's find out what the RAF is going to do. And I think one of the first things to look at is we know in this hex here, I'm going to click on that. We can see the German forces because limited intelligence is turned off right now. So we can see the German forces. There's a construction regiment and some AA battalions in here. More importantly, there's a depot. And when I look up here, this pops up. And although some of that kind of ran off the edge of the screen that I'm recording, when I look at it, I can see that there are 28 points of supply in that depot. And there's 17 REs of German troops that need to eat those supplies. So I think one of the things that we'll do is conduct an air mission. And as you can see, this link has come up, and that will happen in any hex that you click on if there's some kind of target, if there's something that can happen there. So we'll go here. There's going to be some targets in this hex. So we say conduct air mission, and it shows what missions are available and allows air factors to be allocated. Also, were there inclement weather in the target hex, it would remind us that the bombing factors that we allocate will be halved due to mud or snow or whatever. So we have some possible targets here. We can hit railroad, rail marshaling yard, although I have that ready to go. Their finest hour, upon which Sea Lion 40 is based, is so old that there are really no rules for rail cap here. So the British player basically has unlimited rail capacity, and the German player doesn't get any rail capacity at all. So there's no need to bomb rail marshaling yards. So right now that's disabled. You can't click on that. That mission is not available in Sea Lion 40. But on the other hand, I have added the mission of attacking depots. Depots are part of my semi-raw supply system based on the supply system used for the Axis player in their finest hour, which is, pretty much considerably different from what you'll find in other games. So I adapted it a little bit to make it work for Sea Lion 40, and also I think probably to work as a basis for a broader supply system that could be used in some other games and scenarios as well. Anyway, so depots, which contain supplies, are a target. Ports are a target if you want to reduce the capacity, and of course harassment bombing. So these are the things that we can do, and let's go ahead and do a bombing mission, and let's try to knock out some port capacity here. Note down here we have the bombing table, and that's just standard from the old Europa games. It's a bit odd, and I think this is just the way the game system works. If, for example, you want to break a rail line, and if you're sure that you want to break it, you can assign 17 bomb factors, assuming you have 17 bomb factors. You can assign 17 bomb factors to the air mission and be sure, 6 out of 6 chance of breaking that rail line. On the other hand, if you assign 17 bomb factors to attack a port, that means you'll for sure get one hit, but only one hit. On the other hand, if you were to assign, just to make the math easy, I'll say 18 bomb factors, one at a time, to attack the port, then the odds would say that probably you're going to get 3 hits on the port. You might not get any at all. You might get more than 3, but the odds say that you're going to get 3 of them. So depending on what you're bombing, you might want to clump up your factors together, or you might want to spread them out. And in this case, we'll just we'll throw 1 bomb factor in here to see what happens. There's enemy air factors. Remember, this is very abstracted. So enemy air factors can be assigned to intercept here. And we'll just put up 1 to intercept. These are just minimal numbers. And note that there are Axis AA factors in the target hex too. So this is just a simple little attack against the port. Let's see if we can reduce the capacity. So we'll click here to resolve it, and the results come up. So the enemy interceptors got one shot but didn't get any hits. The Allied bombing mission, we fired one and we did hit that enemy interceptor. So this is not telling us, but either it was destroyed or turned back or whatever, aborted, whatever. Yeah, here the enemy AA fired and scored 2 hits, and that is an unusual result that they scored 2 hits on the bombers with 2 AA factors, one for each of those battalions. So that means we didn't actually deliver any bombs to the target, and consequently the target was not hit. So we'll close that, and it says, okay, you're probably done there, but let's go back in. Let's try again. Now remember, I set this up quite artificially with 200 available air factors. The RAF wishes they had 200 air factors on there. So we'll go ahead and throw 17 of them in here on the port and resolve that with no interception. They did hit the bombers, but we got 16 factors to the target. We did score the hit. 1 point of capacity was lost. And when we look back here, we can see that this port, which has a capacity of 6, now has 1 hit on it. So while we're here, let's attack the depot. Depending on the situation, this might be a waste of bombers or it might be useful. And we'll go in and just to see how this works, I'm going to throw 17 more factors in here. In fact, I'm going to throw in some extras because there'll be some AA. I'm going to leave the interceptors out because we don't care about those. And let's try to hit the depot. So we'll click here to resolve that mission. No interception. AA fired twice, scored 0. So we got 20 bomb factors to the target. We hit the depot, and so there's 1 hit, and 1 supply point was eliminated. So if we come back around to here, then we can see now that the supply number has gone down a little bit. By the way, if we wanted to see more details on that depot, again, because we're playing with limited intelligence turned off, we can look up here and see 27 and 17. I think maybe I did that already. All right, how about let's hit that railroad one time and see what's going on. We'll do that. And the railroad is hit and broken. So we can see the railroad is already broken, so we can't attack it again. Rail marshaling yards aren't working right now. We could, as long as we have air factors, we can come back and hit that depot over and over again and try to destroy as many supplies as possible and make it tough on the Axis player who already has a lot of difficulty getting enough supplies across to keep everybody supplied and at full strength in the front line. We could also try to reduce the port capacity some more. Of course, as we reduce the port capacity, that makes it more difficult for supplies and troops to land there. Or we could do harassment bombing, and let's go to harassment bombing, in fact. If we go here, we look at this harassment table. So if 2 or 3 bomb factors are delivered, that gives us 1 MP of harassment. And actually, if the Axis player lands troops there, and there's a harassment in the hex, that's going to make it even slower for those troops who have to already pay MPs to get across the water, and they have to pay MPs to land, and they'll have to pay MPs because of the harassment bombing. So in theory, maybe we could keep them away from the front and prevent them from being able to attack in the same turn that they land. So let's put 3 factors in there on harassment, resolve the mission. No interception because I didn't put any in. The AA missed. We delivered 3 bomb factors, and that gave us a 1 MP cost. So the system is hanging on to that until it's the German player turn, and then that will kick in. So if we close that, and here we go around again, and let's see what's happening. So it's keeping track that we've delivered 3 at a 1 MP cost, so we could go in here, put some more harassment on it, resolve that. And so now it adds it up. So we delivered 3 this time, which means we've now accumulated 6 bombing factors for 2 MP cost. So that's pretty much how bombing works here. Works the same way for the Luftwaffe. They do have a little bit of an issue, kind of the bomb line or the bombing leash, because the system is so abstracted and it's just points. I don't have air units and I don't have air fields. Now the RAF, being based in the UK, of course, they can move around, I think, and freely bomb any place in the UK anytime they want. As for the Axis player, I don't think that's quite true. So to begin with, I assume that all Luftwaffe is based on the continent, but as the Axis player creates supply depots in the UK, the northernmost Axis depot that contains one or more supplies is the point from which we measure the bomb line or the bomb leash. And I think I have that now set to, I think it's set at 12 hexes north. So as the German player advances and creates depots farther north, then the Luftwaffe is allowed to attack farther north. Otherwise, right now, they probably can't attack beyond, I don't know, Birmingham or Nottingham or something like that. But the RAF doesn't have that problem. All right, so let's bail out of this. We'll cancel this one. I think we've done all those different kinds of things there. And let's see what happens when we want to take care of what the opposing player has done to us. And so if we go back up here, by the way, let's check this. And if we see friendly harassment bombing, so this is where we, as the ally player, have delivered harassment bombing in that hex. And the Axis player will have to pay extra movement points if he tries to move anybody through that hex in his turn. So let's move that. Okay, so let's go over here to Portsmouth, where we happen to have a major port, and we know there's a hit there. We already looked at that. We've got a construction brigade here, so let's go into construction, repair, and demolition, and we can see that this port capacity has a capacity of 12, has 1 hit on it, and it takes 4 MPs from this 12th Construction Brigade to remove 1 hit. So let's repair the port capacity. So we successfully did that. And now we'll go back up here and do this. And now if we run up here and look at port hits, the only port hit is the one that we put down here on the Axis control port in this hex because we've removed it. Now if we go up here and say let's look at rail brakes. All right, so we have some rail brakes here. So let's get rid of those dots and let's go in and take a look at this. We actually have a construction brigade in there. Note that this is reminding us that there's a railroad there. It's standard gauge, and it says standard because that's left over from playing on the Russian front, so it will always tell you what gauge the railroad is, as well as the fact in this case that it has a brake. So if we look at this construction brigade, note the 1EX here. It hasn't moved, so why has it expended 1 movement point? Well, it just so happens that hex is under Luftwaffe harassment. It's in effect right now. So right off the top, before anything happens, that construction brigade has lost 1 movement point for being under the enemy harassment. Nevertheless, if we come over here and give this a click, and we could repair this rail brake, and we successfully did it. So it's gone. But I think that's about it. I think that covers just about everything that I wanted to talk about. and that is essentially the latest in the air system, which little by little is moving away from the extremely abstracted stuff that I did in the first place when I was fiddling around with this. And I think eventually this is going to get all the way, or at least quite close, to being a full-blown Europa air system. All right, thanks for watching the video.